Hey guys, it's JJ with BeatsOtherSolutions.com. I wanted to show you kind of some cool features with Opnsense, and I'll talk a little bit about PFSense as well. Um, the reason I made this video, this is like my first time doing it. I made it because when I looked on how to do this, I couldn't really find it. There wasn't really a video on YouTube that basically somebody walks you through the process. So that's what I wanted to do because it's fresh in my mind because I've done it like to two different firewalls or whatever. And if we were to debate between uh, uh, PFSense versus OPNsense, there are differences. Um, I'm a fan of both. I think they're great. The interfaces they're both running on FreeBSD. So just a little history. In a certain, I can't remember when it was that they forked, and OPNsense went their way, and uh, PFSense got bought out by Netgate. So you can still download PFSense and it's still great software. Actually, I've run in virtual machines all the time. But the biggest thing that's cool about this, and I'm into security, IT security, is this right here, two-factor authentication. When you set up Cisco firewalls and you're doing more stuff new, you have to pay extra, and it's with the Cisco ASAs and stuff, it can get very expensive, but you can do this on your own. And then somebody tries to hack your VPN, they can't do anything without that two-factor authentication. PFSense doesn't have this, so I really feel like OPNsense you went more towards security, and that's the reason I tried it. And really, the GUI, the interface is not that much difference. I actually prefer it over PFSense. So I want to get into it. I'll try to get going as fast as I can. Like I said, this is my first time, and also I don't know how long YouTube will let me go. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So I'm on a Mac, but I'm going to log into a Windows box. So let's get it started here. Kind of jumping through some hoops here. Okay, so let's get started. I have a ESXi box. As you can see, I already have a couple of OPN boxes and PFSense. This is my main box for routing. I have a couple EXI boxes. So anyway, we'll get started with it. For you guys that's installing it on appliance or on an old box with a bunch of NICs, you don't have to worry about this because this is just how I'm doing it. It's through VM ESXi. So I'll show you the way that I did it. But as far as the only difference is once the install is, I'm going to show you how to get it set up. So here we go. So I'm going to do custom, and I'm just going to do OPN sense test box. Okay, and you can just pick a hard drive. I have SSDs in there, so it's fast. Self is pretty explanatory. This part, when you're running VMware, you want to make sure that you select FreeBSD 64-bit because that's the ISO that I got from their site. If you're not going to do a lot of demanding, you can just do one processor. For this demonstration, I'm only going to do one. How much RAM? I think they recommend 4, but I'm just going to do 2 for this demonstration because I'm not throwing a lot of stuff on it. It's just doing a VPN and two-factor authentication. So I hit next. This part's important too. You want to select 2 NICs, and it's important that you select the right one. So you want to do WAN, and then you want to do LAN. So you have your outside and your inside, and you can go crazy with it and do a DMZ or a radius server with wireless, and you can go to town with it and select as up to 4 cards, whatever you want. So I'm gonna hit next, next. I'm gonna leave it at 8 for now because we're gonna do. Basically, I just really want to show you how to do it because I didn't have any help. I had to just go through all the readmes and stuff on their website, and I got it to work. And just trying to help you out. So I always hit start or edit before starting so I can mount the ISO. So again, this is VMware stuff. So if you're just looking to install this on a box, you can completely like fast forward this part. So I'm going to look for the ISO. I think I put it on hard drive too. Okay, so under ISOs, there it is. If you look, you can see that I still have a pfSense release, and then here's Opnsense, and I'm going to select that one. And I got to always check connect on at power on, or I won't post. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open this. And I'm going to play it. Here we go. This is what you should see when you install it manually on your box or whatever. So, but everything's so virtualized, it's crazy. It's a really short install, doesn't take very long. And then once again, when I did some research, I found that Opnsense just does a little bit of add-ons on FreeBSD. It's like bare bone, just running enough to run Apache and stuff like that, and then you get in there and most of it's GUI interface. You don't have to do very much CLI because the web GUI, when I show you that, it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so it gave me the opposite of what I wanted, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and set the NIC. So it's root and then it's open or Opnsense to log in. I'm going to set those NICs differently because that's not the way they should be. Okay, sorry guys, I'm just trying to figure out what I put what on. Okay. Okay, so they should be reversed. You know what? I'm gonna tank this. This is virtualization problems. I'm sorry, guys. I don't want. I'll fast forward this or edit it or something because it's just acting weird. So what I'm doing now is I'm just changing the NIC cards because it didn't sign them correctly. Okay, let's try this again here. But I mean, even the package installs with Opnsense. It's got some really good packages too. I know pfSense is a little more rounded and stuff, but the guys that forked away from it, they still developed it really well. It's very solid, and I really thought the interface in the GUI through the web browser, I thought it was going to be really crappy because like I'm so used to pfSense and clicking everywhere. It's really not that much. It's not hard to once you start using it. It's a piece of cake. So just waiting here. I want to make sure they do the right assignment. Oh man. Okay, so this is the screen that you want to be at. So I have a collision. I have a collision with my okay, let's see if it was the reason those errors were coming up is because it was colliding with another IP address. Um, on it looks like on the LAN, so I think we're good now. Okay, so here's the part that I'll get into really quick. So I'm just gonna put this aside for a minute. That's the password for the first time login, and then we're gonna go ahead and go to the browser. So I'll put both of these links in the description below so you can check them out. But these are the two pages that really guide you through it. So I'm going to try to go through it pretty quick, but everything is here. It's just it's intimidating because it seems like it's a lot of work. It's really not though. You know, it's pretty close to pfSense what you would do, but as you see, you have the multi-factor authentication, which is that's what sold me, because that way I know if my VPN is hacked without that token, they're just dead in the water. And usually you'd pay extra if you got a different appliance for that. That's pretty spendy. So we're gonna go ahead and log into it. It's the IP address that you set for the WAN or LAN. I haven't changed the password, so it's still the same. Okay, so and it does a little walkthrough here. It tells you what's going on. Go ahead and hit next. We can leave that. Primary server, I like to, you can do Google, you can do 8.8.8.8. I like to use cloud. So I do 1.1.1.1, and then I do 1.0.0.1, and I uncheck this box. I'm just going to leave it pfSense local domain. I could just put test, and then domain, I'll just leave that, and I'm going to go ahead, hit next on that. On my time, it's on Central, so I just want to scroll to Central, or my city, obviously. There it is. Okay. You get into this part, and this is where the WAN, you can set it static as long as you have a static IP address. For this sake, I'm just going to use it for DHCP because I don't have any more public IPs. I've used all mine up. I have a business account with AT&T, and I have 5 IPs, and I'm currently using them all. So I'm gonna leave it on DHCP, which is fine. Usually it pulls the gateway, it pulls all that stuff. So you go down here, and you want to uncheck this one right here. This private networks, this particular one, because it might interfere with your VPN. So you hit next. I'm going to leave this as 244. Like usual, this would be 7.1 or something, but I already have something on that side of the network. I'll leave it as a class C. We hit next. This is where I change my password. You can get as crazy as you want with it. Go ahead and hit next. Okay, so I'm going to hit reload. You can also see what it's doing in the background. Okay, so it says you configured it, la la la, continue to dashboard. Okay, so the interface is cool too because you can pull the tabs and set like traffic and all that, but I don't want to get into all that as I really want to help you to understand the two-factor authentication. That's really where I'm trying to go. So it does updates. That's the cool thing. I mean, like I said, it's very similar to pfSense. And then, okay, so we have our WAN DHCP, which we'll leave that, and then our LAN is that. I'm going to use that as the gateway. So, oh, that's right. Okay, so this message right here is actually really important. If you don't install it right, this every time you restart it, it doesn't do like pfSense where it installs it on the box. So even though we configured it, if we restart it, it's going to go. So how you do that is, I'll show you that, and I'm actually glad that came up because otherwise you won't have your stuff saved. So what they recommend, and I'll highlight it, and once again I say I'll give you the link. This part right here is what you want. Actually, just this part. Okay, so I'm going to minimize that part. Okay, so right here it tells you to open a shell. So you're going to open a shell, so you got 8. This really is not very hard. It's pretty simple, but you have to do this to install it on the hard drive. So once you are I'm already logged in as root. The only thing you have to type once you had hit shell, now I'm in the shell command, you're going to do Opnsense, and then you're going to do dash installer. And this is, like I said, important because if you don't do this, your box will really, it won't save all the stuff. So, and then you hit enter, and it literally does, it goes into FreeBSD. And this is the install on the hard drive. So Factory defaults are pretty much okay. You can get as advanced as you want, but I'm going to go ahead. I set all this mostly, so I'm already, I'm just going to kind of go through this pretty quick. And here we go. Now it's installing it on the hard drive. I forgot about that. I'm glad that came up, because otherwise, when I would have restarted, it'd have been gone, all the work that you put into it. So you can even do this before you do the web GUI. So I hope that it'll save that. I might have to do that again. I don't know. We'll find out here in a second. Okay, and while that's loading, I'll show you. This is the SSL Vpn. It goes through it. It's pretty easy. But like I said, somebody walking through it, I never found any YouTube on it. There was, Opnsense versus pfSense, and there was, just not a lot to go by. So that's why I thought maybe I'd pass it on to you guys, and if you guys want to do this to your home server, or even on a business, you can sell two-factor authentication, because honestly, that's where we're at with security, with the way hackers are getting into networks and stuff like that. So anyway, this is a good page to help assist with the whole situation. But let me see if it's done here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just leave it. Okay, here we go with the reboot. And I like to try to get the mounted file. I'm wondering if it's going to even remember what I set it to. No, it remembered. Okay, cool. So we'll let that play the background. It's probably going to ask me to relog in on the web page. Okay, so here we go. This is the two guides to kind of go through for reference and stuff. But I'm just going to jump in. Let me refresh this so I can log back in. So you're going to log in with root. And let me see if it kept my password, or I have to create a new one. Yeah, it kept it. Cool. Okay, so now it's installed. So if your box restarts, your UPS goes out and runs out of time and it restarts, you don't have to worry about it. If I didn't do that, it would have basically lost all the configuration and you had to do it all over again. So now, once you're in here, like I said, the GUI is pretty easy to go through. It's very self-explanatory, really nice. So we have our default gateways, we have our interface. Our WAN is 244, and then, our LAN is 244, and our WAN is 68. So that's for the WAN. I know that you guys are thinking that's not a public IP, and you're exactly right, because I ran out of public IPs. I need to get some more. But for this tutorial, we're just going to try to use that one. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to create a CA certificate. So you go over here to Trust and you go to Authorities, and it's important that you do this part. You can just say SSL CA. You want to create an internal, and this is cool because I like to set this to be pretty secure. I do 496, and the SHA I do 512, and then your country code. I think it'll complain if I don't put that in there. So, because it's got the question marks by it. So you leave that. Go ahead and fill in your state, or you can put a bogus email or a bogus organization, however you want to. I kind of filled it in my own way. So leave it as internal CA, internal/CA. Go ahead and save. Okay, so we have a self-signed. Went ahead and created it. Now we're going to go to certificates, and this is the one for the web SSL GUI interface, so because it's on a secure socket level, so it has to have a certificate in there. But we're going to add another one. We want to create an internal certificate, and we're going to call this SSL I'll just do SSL Vpn server. And so the authority you want to leave is SSL CA is what I called it. This is not a client certificate. This is a server one. So you want to put that in there. Again, I like to do 4096, and then I like to do SHA-512. Makes it pretty secure. And then down here, it pretty much filled in all my values. The common name, you can put whatever you want. I can just put beats. Actually, I'll put SSL cert. The DNS alternative names, you can leave that. We're going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, so it did SSL CA. Okay, so now that's for your VPN. And then the next thing is you got to create an account. So you go over here to access, go users. Actually, you know what, before we do that, I'm going to show you the two-factor authentication. So we go here. Okay, so this is where it's a little not really tricky, but you just kind of you got to pay attention. So there's the local database that has the root or whatever account that you create, and then there's another one that's going to be your two-factor authentication. So we can call this we can call it SSL two-factor just kind of abbreviated there a little bit so I know. Okay, and then you want to do here, so when it asks for what type, you want to do local time-based one-time password. You leave that alone, leave window alone, grace period, all that's fine. So you just select that. You hit save. Now it has the local database, and then it also has the two-factor. Okay, so now the next thing to do is to add a user. So root is the only one in there because it's a fresh box. But I'm going to go ahead and make a new user. And we can also create certificates here too, so that's pretty cool. So I'm just going to call it VPN. Give it a pretty easy password just for testing purposes. I'm just put VPN. If you leave this blank, it'll be forever. If you actually put an expiration date on there, it will time out for that. You can also add it to the admins if you want, but since this is only going to be a VPN, and it's just going to be, it's not going to need the GUI or anything else. So this is where you do the two-factor. That's really important. So I have all the stuff for the user. I go back down to here, and I'm also going to create a certificate. Now you could just go to certificates and then add one, and then you want to check this box. This creates the OTP seed is what you use for the two-factor authentication, and I will show you that here in just a minute. So I'm going to select both of those, and then you we'll hit save and go back. Okay, now it's saying import an existing certificate. We don't want that. We want to create our own. So we're going to create an internal certificate. VPN, there's your authority, and we want client certificate. Check that. Like again, once again, you get used to the security hash. So I like to do that. It's pretty strong. Leave that there. Filled all that in for me. Okay, so all I did here was I changed the client certificate, and then I said create an internal certificate, and I'm going to hit save, and that is saved in there. Okay, so this being testing purposes, I will show you this, but I don't want you to VPN to my system. So now that this client's in there, you click unhide, and it will show you the bar scan for your, you can use Google Authenticator, you can use, that's what I use, is Google Authenticator for this particular case. And you can also create one for root. I highly don't recommend it, but you can. So I'm just going to hit save and go back. I mean, you can do this just so you don't get locked out of your system. Actually, I'm not going to do it for root. It's not good practices. Okay, so we got VPN in there. And then the last thing is creating the VPN. So you got that set up, and then now you're going to go through the Open VPN settings. So you're going to click here, and you're going to click servers, and then right here we'll call it Opnsense VPN. Okay, and so what I do kind of is I reference this sometimes just to kind of look at some of the stuff. This is what we already did. We already added user, did that. Here, now we're setting this up. So I just do like to go through this. And so, okay, we're going to leave it. This part is how it authenticates with your VPN. Right now it's just going to authenticate through the local database. I don't want to do that. I want it to use my token with the two-factor authentication. So what I have to do is go here to the bottom to SSL TLS plus user authentication. And then it asks, well, what do you want for a backend server for authentication? You can choose that one. So you choose your two-factor authentication. If you did your local base database, it would just use that. Now, and I've been locked out when I've done a fallback. I'll show you that in a minute. So we'll go here and, sorry, let me just make sure. Okay, there we go. This is not the page I want. They use OpenVPN on a UDP port. That's what they use here. You don't have to do that. And then I'll show you. Okay, so we're going to go back to it. Okay, and first protocol, you do TCP, because this is going to be, you leave it as tunnel. Interface we'll leave as WAN, but I just want to make sure they're the same thing they're doing. Sorry guys, I should have this memorized. I've done this so many times. Okay, so it's TCP, it's WAN, it's going to use the outside, and then you're going to do 443. 443 is the best to use, because if you're in an airport or Starbucks or wherever, that's the best port to use, because it's not usually blocked. But if you do the UDP 1194, some places won't let you have connectivity. So I'm going to leave that there. We're going to do those checked. And then this part, we want to check SSL Vpn server. And then you want to make this to 2096. This one, you want to do, let's see here. You want to do this one. So that's the standard one that's recommended. I always do SHA 512. There's no hardware acceleration. One client to server, client plus server, that's fine. The tunneling network, you can copy the one they have here if you want. Well, you can set this to whatever you want, because this is just for your VPN. And in this tutorial that I just showed you, it says to leave the gateway unchecked, but the problem is if you do that, it's not going to let you use your internet connection with your VPN. You'll only be able to get internally. So what I've found, troubleshooting and stuff, you want to do redirect gateway, and then you get the tunnel. Compression, you just want to do enable with adaptive compression. You do check that. You want to disable IP version 6. You leave address pool. You can put your DNS servers directly in here if you want. And then you can force DNS cache update if you want, but it should just go to the gateway and pull that. Okay, so this is important. This right here has to be set to 0, because that helps with the two-factor authentication, and I can show you that I'm going to exit this one. No, I'll leave it all on, so I can give it to you guys later. Okay, so right here we created the two-factor authentication, and then if you look, okay, it's not showing me what I want. Okay, no problem. Okay, that's standard. We already did that. Install Google Authenticator on your phone. So it's free, doesn't cost or whatever. This is the seed, and then you click to unhide. Now we only have one user. We just have the VPN user, and obviously I would scan it and be able to do the two-factor. They use a couple other ones. There's this one. Then this is how you scan it. Literally, once you open it in Google, it's pretty easy. Yeah, there you go. There's some of the links there. I'll put this in there as well, and it also circles. So that's what it actually looks like when you do it. So let me go back and check and see if there's anything I missed. So that's 0, and we're going to hit save. Okay, so it's running. Now, this is the last thing. Firewall rules. Not super hard, just a little bit tedious, but not super hard. So it's running on 443. You want to go to your firewall, and you want to click on rules. In the WAN, we're going to open up 443. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, guys. So as we set up the VPN server, we set up all that stuff. Now we can go into test it. And so how you do that, well, first let me finish showing you what I was talking about with the firewall. So you got to go to firewall, and then make sure under rules that you have the open VPN, so it passes traffic on there. And then on the WAN, this is the way it should look. You got to open port 443, and it's TCP. You got to select that when you edit the rules. So this is what it looks like. It's TCP, and then basically you're just opening up that port so we can get to the firewall and get to the VPN. And then on LAN, I don't think it'll pass the traffic. It should be okay. If you want to, you can always add it. So those two rules have to be there for it to work. And then you can port out to test the port. But before we do that, I'm going to show you how it works with the two-factor authentication. So if you go to System, and then you go to Access, and then you go to Tester, what this does is it tests the username. So remember, we created VPN. So we created VPN, and this password is going to be the first numbers and then the password for that. And so like right here, when you go down, where did it go? Okay, here it is. Okay, so this is the like mine's pretty similar to this. So this is the authenticator. So what you would do is you would enter that in, and it times out. So I don't know, it gives you like 30 seconds. I use the Google Authenticator. There's another one you can use. So this is how you test it. So it's going to be, and it tells you right here, it's going to be the 6 digit code and then the password for that account. So like for me, with our new setup router, no, that's not it, sorry. I can do local database. So local database is what it is. So I'm going to do the password there. It's good to go. It says successful. Now I'm going to go to the two-factor authentication, and with the same password, it's going to fail. So what you have to do is you have to go back to users, and then you have to go to the VPN, and you can click edit here, and then you go down here to where it says OTP seed. Okay, and with the Google Authenticator, it's going to have a camera that'll do it. So you unhide this, and this is, you want to keep it safe because so I am going to pull out my phone. I know you can't see it on the camera, so I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of that. So you scan barcode. On my phone, I'm in Google Authenticator, and you click scan barcode, and then you put it on there, and it saves it in there. And now my phone says VPN at Opnsense test, because that's what we called it. So now I'm going to show you, and you don't want anybody to get that because that's your secret code for the two-factor authentication. So now we're going to go back to the tester, and so I showed you a local database just to show you again. So there's the password there, just like I did. It's successful. Go to two-factor authentication, I hit test, nothing. So now what I'm going to do is I have my phone in my hand, and I have the password, gives you like 30 seconds, and this is the one you scan with that barcode. So okay, now it gave me a code, so I'm going to put that code in, and then I'm put in my password, and I'm going to hit test. There we go. So now that proves that two-factor authentication works. And now the tokens already change because every 30 seconds it changes. And this is with this, so it's always the 6 digits and then your password. And you usually try to get it fast because otherwise it'll change. So that's that tests that, and that's already set up on the VPN. So once you log in, you're going to log in with the VPN account. I would show you that part, but I'm kind of short on time. I don't want to make this video too long. The last thing that I would recommend is when you go to settings, this part right here, this is actually really important. Okay, there's the authentication server, which is two-factor, and then there's the authentication fallback. Well, I did this and I put no fallback and only the two-factor authentication, and I locked myself out because the root didn't have a certificate, so I could not get back in at all. So because the root didn't have a certificate, it won't let you back in because there's no fallback. So I would be careful turning this on. I would make sure you have a certificate for the root, because if you don't, if you look here, I'll show you, it says this is why. The other one was just user, and this one is for the GUI. So I couldn't get in the GUI, couldn't get in SSH, I couldn't even get on the server with it, and I locked myself out. I had to redo the whole firewall, so it was pretty terrible. So what you do, so you don't get locked out, is since this is the root account, you would create one, and then you kind of do the same thing as the VPN account, but the VPN account's what you're going to use on the web. The root account you're not going to use. This is just in case you need to get back in. So you would hit save. It says it's been applied successfully. Sorry, I'm just checking this real quick. Okay, so now it has a seed. So if I click unhide, literally scan that with your phone, you'll be able to get in with root in the web page. Because be very careful, I have done that and locked myself out, because right here will give you access to the GUI, and if you go back to the users for VPN, that's all I had and I didn't know. So lesson learned, it took me a while. If you look down here, it has no extra privileges that let you open up the GUI or anything. So that's all I had to fall back on. And when I tried to log back in, it said you're not an administrator, you don't have access, blah blah blah. So now that you have both of those in there, let me get the key here. I'm gonna do this real quick. So I'm gonna unhide this, and then I'm gonna get the key. I'm gonna scan it to my authenticator, my Google authenticator. It's really easy, it's not very hard. So I'm going to scan it. This is the root account, because the VPN account won't have it. So on my phone it says root at Opnsense test, and it's on the root. So now what you can do, and I highly recommend it because it makes your firewall even more secure. Now that I have it, I took a picture of it, it's good to go. Save and go back. Okay, so now you go back here to settings, and this is where you go to authenticate server fallback, and you change this to no fallback, and you leave session time, you just leave that alone. Now when I hit save, the only way I'm going to be able to get back into this server is if I have those tokens. So if I hit save, now save and test, we've done this already. So I hit save, let me log out, and then if I log back in with root and the password I set, this is the local, just the password without the token. It won't let me in. So now I have to pull out my phone, and basically I see a code. It lasts for about 30 seconds. I put in the number. Wait, whoops, sorry, that's root. Okay, hold on, sorry, this is okay. So it goes root and then your token code, oh, you know what, I'm entering the wrong password. There we go. Okay, I was entering the wrong password. So that was tedious because I have 3 numbers I have to enter in, and then you get in that way. But if you can't get into the firewall without that, even when you try to get in through the shell, you're supposed to be able to. I don't know why it's not popping up. So if you go back to the console, like you would see if you hooked up a monitor or whatever, here it won't even fall back. So if I do root and then I do my password. It won't even let you in. And that's what happened to me. I got locked out. And so that fallback, you got to be really careful, because if you do not have that cert, mainly through the web browser, you got to get in and you can disable it or whatever. So just be advised about that. Um, Let me get my computer back here. Okay, guys, so that's kind of it as far as the tutorial. I hope you learn a lot about it. You can leave comments at the bottom if you want. Um, like I said, the only difference between pfSense and Opnsense is that they have a couple more different security features. And like I said, again, I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but the two-factor authentication is really nice. And so enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll put these shortcuts in the bottom so you can go to those for reference if you decide to go through the tutorial. Alright, you guys have a good one.